Why airport food is so expensive. In 2023, just 144 food and beverage locations at Chicago O'Hare International Airport generated more than $350 million in sales. That works out to an average of roughly $2.4 million per location. And some airport concession agreements can require restaurants to pay a percentage of every sale back to the airport. Chicago's own concession materials show proposed percentage rents ranging from 14 to 17% for fast food restaurants, 15 to 18% for branded coffee shops, and as much as 17 to 20% for bars. So, when you buy a $15 sandwich, more than $2 of that sale could go toward airport rent before the restaurant pays for the bread, the meat, the employee behind the counter, the electricity, or anything else. That may explain part of the price. But it does not explain everything, because airport food is not expensive for just one reason. It is expensive because airports combine high operating costs with something even more powerful. Millions of hungry travelers who have limited time, limited choices, and almost nowhere else to go. Walk into almost any major airport in the United States, and the experience feels familiar. A bottle of water that normally costs $2 may cost 5 or 6. A simple sandwich can cost $15 or more. Add a cup of coffee, and what looked like a quick snack can suddenly cost as much as a full meal at a restaurant outside the airport. The products are not necessarily better. The bottle is the same size. The coffee may come from the same national brand. The sandwich may even be smaller than the one sold outside. So why does the price change the moment you pass through airport security? The first answer is rent. A restaurant on an ordinary street usually pays a fixed amount to lease its location. Airport businesses may face a more complicated arrangement. They can be required to pay base rent, marketing fees, distribution fees, and what the industry calls percentage rent. Percentage rent means the airport receives a percentage of the restaurant's sales. There may also be a minimum annual guarantee. That means the business promises to pay the airport a certain minimum amount every year, even if sales are disappointing. Chicago's airport concession materials give a simple example. A business might be required to pay either $100,000 per year or 15% of its annual sales, whichever amount is higher. If the business sells $800,000 worth of food, 15% would equal $120,000. That becomes the amount paid to the airport. But if sales fall to $500,000, 15% would be only $75,000. The business would still owe the full $100,000 minimum. This creates an unusual situation. When business is good, the airport receives more money. When business is weak, the restaurant may still be responsible for a large guaranteed payment. Either way, those costs have to be built into the price of every burger, bottle of water, and cup of coffee. Then there's the cost of opening the restaurant itself. Building inside an airport is not the same as renting an empty shop at a neighborhood shopping center. Airport restaurants may need specialized construction, security approvals, restricted access, and designs that comply with detailed airport requirements. Chicago's 2024 materials estimated concession build-out costs at approximately $1,500 to $2,500 per square foot. The same materials showed that an average airport food and beverage location was about 950 square feet. Using those figures, a typical location could require roughly $1.4 million to $2.4 million in construction and setup costs before selling its first sandwich. That is only an estimate, and actual costs vary, but it shows how expensive entering the airport market can be. A business that invests that much money cannot depend on low prices and thin margins. It needs to recover its investment during the limited number of years covered by its airport agreement. But high rent and construction costs are still only the beginning. Everything that enters the secure side of an airport may involve additional rules. Employees may need airport identification badges. Deliveries may need to follow controlled schedules and access procedures. Food, drinks, packaging, and equipment must be received, checked, stored, and moved to locations that may be far from ordinary loading areas. Chicago's official guidance for airport concession operators specifically lists security, employee access, merchandise delivery, storage, and hours of operation among the major issues businesses must manage. A regular restaurant may receive a shipment through a back door only a few feet from its kitchen. An airport restaurant operates inside a transportation and security system. The product may be identical, but moving that product to the customer requires more time, more coordination, and often more labor. Then there is the schedule. Airports do not operate like normal shopping districts. Flights can depart before sunrise and arrive late at night. Restaurants may need workers at times when most businesses are closed. Finding employees willing to travel to an airport for an early morning shift can be difficult. Workers may also need to pay for transportation or employee parking, and they must pass through access and security procedures before beginning work. The restaurant may have to open early because several flights depart at 6 in the morning. But that does not mean customers arrive at a steady rate. Airport traffic comes in waves. For 20 minutes, a restaurant may face a line of 50 passengers. Then several flights board, the terminal becomes quiet, and almost no one orders anything for the next hour. The restaurant still pays its workers during that quiet period. The refrigerators continue running. Food still has to be prepared. Rent and airport fees do not stop just because the terminal becomes empty. And because food is perishable, the restaurant must balance two expensive risks. Prepare too little, and it loses sales when a large group of passengers suddenly arrives. Prepare too much, and unsold food may have to be thrown away. These costs help explain why airport food starts at a higher price. But they still do not explain why passengers agree to pay it. For that, we need to look at the most valuable resource inside an airport. Not the runway, not the airplanes, the passengers themselves. At O'Hare, approximately 51% of passengers during a recent 12-month period were connecting travelers who never left the airport. That is a massive population of customers who may spend several hours inside the terminal with no practical access to restaurants outside. In business, this is known as a captive audience. A captive audience is a group of customers whose alternatives are limited by their location or circumstances. After you pass through security, you cannot simply walk across the street to find a cheaper sandwich. Technically, you could leave the secure area, but then you would need to return, go through security again, and risk missing your flight. You could refuse to pay $6 for a bottle of water. But if your flight is delayed for 3 hours and you are thirsty, that decision becomes more difficult. The restaurant does not need to offer the lowest price in the city. It only needs to be the most convenient choice within walking distance of your gate. This gives airport businesses something economists call pricing power. Pricing power means a seller can raise prices without losing every customer. Outside the airport, a restaurant charging twice as much as its competitors may lose customers immediately. Inside the airport, its closest competitor may be another expensive restaurant several terminals away, and the traveler may have only 20 minutes before boarding begins. Time changes the value of money. A passenger with 2 hours to spare may walk around and compare prices. A passenger whose flight begins boarding in 15 minutes may pay almost anything for the fastest available meal. Stress also changes how people make decisions. Airports demand constant attention. Travelers are checking departure screens, listening for announcements, finding gates, carrying luggage, managing children, and worrying about delays. Under those conditions, saving $3 may feel less important than avoiding another problem. The customer is not carefully comparing every sandwich. The customer is buying speed, certainty, and convenience. This is why airport prices cannot be explained only by the cost of ingredients. The flour in an airport sandwich is not dramatically more valuable. The coffee beans are not rare, and the water does not taste better because it passed through security. The higher price comes from the entire system surrounding the product. The airport charges businesses for access to a valuable location. The business pays more to build, staff, supply, and operate inside that location. Then the traveler pays for the convenience of receiving the product without leaving the secure area. There is still a limit to what businesses should be allowed to charge. After complaints about extreme prices, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey strengthened its airport pricing rules. Its current policy generally limits concession prices to comparable street prices, plus a maximum of 15%. It also requires certain lower-priced food and beverage choices. The existence of such a rule reveals both sides of the issue. Airport operators recognize that businesses face higher costs, but they also recognize that passengers with limited choices need protection from unreasonable pricing. So, are airport restaurants simply taking advantage of travelers? Sometimes a price may be difficult to justify, but in many cases, the answer is more complicated. Part of the price reflects genuine operating expenses. Part reflects the financial agreement between the business and the airport. And part reflects the simple fact that once travelers enter the terminal, convenience becomes more valuable. The next time you pay $6 for a bottle of water, remember what you are actually buying. You are buying water in one of the most expensive commercial environments in the world. You are helping cover rent, airport fees, security procedures, unusual working hours, complicated deliveries, and the cost of keeping a business open while passenger traffic rises and falls. But above all, you are paying for the ability to solve an immediate problem without leaving your gate. The water may not be worth $6. At that exact moment, to a tired and thirsty traveler, access to the water might be. So what is the most overpriced thing you have ever purchased at an airport? Was it a bottle of water, a sandwich, a cup of coffee, or something even more surprising? Share the item, the price, and the airport in the comments. Your answer may reveal which airports have the most expensive captive customers. And airports are not the only places where businesses can charge a huge premium because customers have limited alternatives. Think about the last time you went to a movie theater. You may have paid $10 or more for a large bucket of popcorn, even though the basic ingredients are extremely inexpensive. Most people assume movie theaters make their money by selling tickets, but the real business may begin after you walk past the ticket counter and smell the popcorn. Why can theaters charge so much for something so cheap to produce? And why is popcorn more important to the movie business than most audiences realize? That is where the story becomes even more interesting.